Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the Maintenance Mindset podcast today. My name's Paul Rhodes, and today's question that we're going to explore a little bit is what if suggesting that an employee should grow their career is the wrong thing to say? No, it's a little bit of a weird statement, is it? Before we get into it, though, I do need to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by AppWork. Now, AppWork is one of our founding sponsors. They're much more than maintenance. They are advanced business intelligence with the ability to streamline maintenance workflows through a process called gamification. It allows maintenance technicians to actually seemingly compete for performance and issues and how they go about their job. You can find out more at www. So for today's episode, I was actually reading a study on swimming pools. Here lately, since it's springtime, I've been doing a lot of research and finding out about opening up our pools and getting them ready for our residents to begin using. As a matter of fact, some places in the country, they're already using them. Down in Florida, I was visiting properties recently that they never shut down. Now, for much of the rest of us, we don't really start thinking about swimming pools until right now. The sun comes out, the clouds seemingly go away, and the trees begin to get green, and all of the plants that property designers seem to love putting around our swimming pools begin to bud and shed stuff down into the water. So I've been doing a lot of research, and I came across this study from a company called Skimmer that what they do is they provide software for swimming pool cleaning and chemical services. The study, if you want to get a copy of the study, it's for free. You can get it downloaded from their website, getskimmer.com. And I got to be honest, I don't know much about them as a company, but their study, the survey, was really informative. It talked quite a bit about some of the issues that the swimming pool management and service companies are having, both on the construction and the day-to-day operational side of their businesses. And in it, I thought it was really interesting. One of the chapters discussed the labor shortage and how, for that industry, retention is a huge concern. It almost sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, what really brought it to my mind and what got me interested in thinking about it was they broke down their resident retention by viewing employees as being three types. Now, yes, these three types are very simplistic looking, but I really like the way they did it. You see, basically, they broke it down to where every employee who has worked for you or worked for your management company or worked for your employer is one of three types. They're either an advancement type person, a money type person, or a freedom type person. Now, these types that they break down are all about what drives the employee. I mean, what is it about their decision-making process that keeps them coming back day after day? And the answer to that question of what is it that keeps them coming back kind of drives them and helps to form decisions. So what I thought would be interesting is to review these three types of people that they put forth in this report, and then apply it to the apartment industry, because I believe that there is a lot of similarities. You see, the report begins and it looks at people who are driven by advancement. And they bring up something that I find very relatable that when we talk with our employees about where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Uh, I love that as a question. It's such an interesting question. And what I really got to thinking was back in 2020, when we answered that question back in 2015, would anybody have said 5 years from now in the year 2020, if we're being asked in 2015, would anybody have said, I want to be in lockdown? I want to be in the middle of a pandemic? So that really speaks to, the difficulty of answering that question. But those are the type of people that want to be asked the where do you see yourself in 5 years question. You see, these people are driven by advancement. They want to move their career forward. Now, one of the things that the study said was that if any employee is asked, regardless of what will say they want to advance, everyone will say they want to advance. But they also go on one step further in the study to say that roughly 1 in 5 people will actually do something about it. And that's how you identify someone in this particular group. The people who do something about their career. You see, what they suppose or what they propose is that to identify someone with this driver style or with this behavior style, the style of wanting to advance their career, as leaders, we should look for someone who's interested in trying new work experiences, gaining new lessons. The type of person who is a advancement-oriented person will initiate actions beyond their current job responsibilities. In other words, at the end of a day, are they just content to ride out the clock, or are they looking for something else to do? One of the big keys or critical components that they point out in this study is that this type of person will begin to ask questions beyond their current role or beyond their current duty. Often, these are the ones that step up, the ones that look for new things, reasons to buy new tools. The study from Skimmer went on to point out the fact that these are the people that we really should identify for further training. I tend to relate quite a bit to this particular segment of driver type people. Throughout my career, I've worked on properties that were sold, to where the management company that I was working for sold the particular employer. It was the opportunity I'm thinking of right now is one that we were third-party managed for an owner, and the owner decided to change management. I was just the maintenance supervisor at the property, and if I'm honest, it was early enough in my career that I really truly didn't quite understand what third-party management and what made it different from owner-operator. All I knew was if something needed to be done, I put in a PO for it to get ordered, and the property manager either agreed or not on whether or not we'd have that based on the budget. And beyond that, I didn't worry about it because I knew what I had to do and I made sure that it got done. But here's the thing. At this particular property, when it got sold, I found out, if I remember right, about 3 or 4 days before the sale went through. And the community manager talked to me, and she said that, well, the current management company doesn't think they're going to look to retain anybody or keep them on with that management company because they don't have a property for people to go to. However, the new management company was interested in retaining as many employees as they would. So all I heard was, I'm not losing my job. I'm just changing the place that my paycheck happens to come from. Okay, fine. I continue getting my paycheck. What's the new company like? I began asking those questions, and my boss didn't know. We all just kind of had to wait around for the 4 days until the sale completed. On the day of the sale, show up that morning, and I just happened to be on call that day. So I showed up that morning and began the process of changing locks for the new company when the sale and all the bank paperwork stuff finally went through. After all of that was done, the new management company came in and they began the onboarding process. And this happened until about mid-afternoon, and I sat in the meetings and we signed up for insurance and we signed up for everything until mid-afternoon. And then the vice president of the original company that I had worked for showed up in the parking lot. And she came into the office and asked to talk to me, pulled me aside and apologized for not getting in touch with me sooner, but that she mentioned that she had noticed and others had noticed that I was someone that they wanted to keep with their current property portfolio. But the problem was they didn't really have some place where I could fit in at the moment. They didn't have any vacant maintenance supervisor positions, and the company that I was working for didn't even have a regional position, regional maintenance manager position. And if they were, to be honest, I wasn't ready for it. I was still early in my career, but apparently I had those behaviors of someone looking for advancement. And they identified that in me and asked if I would be willing to float, to fill in on properties, to do special projects, preventive maintenance, or whatever was needed for the same pay I was getting as a maintenance supervisor. The only difference was I wouldn't have the property bonus, but in exchange, I'm not on call, and they'd pay me mileage since they didn't know where I would be traveling from week to week or even in a couple of cases day to day. Needless to say, I took the job because I really, really liked that property. And the lesson there was that they identified something in me as an advancement type person that they wanted to keep around. Now, the second type of person that the Skimmer survey identifies or studies is the money-driven person. Now, this is a person, and the study goes on to say of the fact that, at some extent, everybody's driven for money because we all have bills. We've all got our own housing expenses to pay and food and kids and family and the need for money. So to some extent, all three have this in common. We need money. And, that need is not going anywhere soon. We all need money. But a money-driven person, these people want and need money beyond the minimum requirement of what they're looking for. These are the type of people that very typically we identify because they're looking to work more, meaning they want work on the weekends. They're interested in on call. They will volunteer for on call. These are people that they're looking to do side jobs or do the side hustle outside, anything to get extra money. And the cool thing is the report actually gave suggestions on how to retain someone who's driven by money. What they suggest is to provide retention bonuses spelled out. For instance, if somebody is hired, and generally speaking, you can indicate or you'll get an indication really, really quick if somebody is driven by money. But we can even spell this out in the hire of if somebody shows up for 3 months, 100% of the time, in other words, 90 days, 1/4 of the year, if you show up on time every day, not out sick, $500 cash. If you show up for 6 months, I'll give you $250 cash, but also a $1 an hour raise. Show up for an entire year with no unexplained, no call, no show, absences. I'll give you the normal raise and a $1,000 bonus. Have that spelled out in writing and then do it. That's a possible solution to the common conversation of, I'm not sure about my maintenance technicians. Why should I train them or develop them? Because they're just going to go down the street for $1 an hour more or for 25 cents more. I mean, I know I've heard that in conversations. I know that that has been said in conferences and education sessions and webinars and the concern that we all have for retention. But I thought that was a really unique kind of way to respond to somebody, to an employee who's driven by money. We spell it out, and then we follow through on the biggest thing that drives them. Now, the third type of person that the Skimmer survey identified was somebody who's driven by freedom. Now, it's my assumption, and this is a complete and total assumption on my part, but I believe it proves out by anecdotal evidence with the whole quiet quitting trend and a lot of what you see refuted on LinkedIn and employment studies and things like that with engagement levels at properties. And you see, a freedom-oriented person, I believe, has increased in numbers since the pandemic. I really, really believe that. And you see, a freedom-driven person values their independence and time away from work. You see, all three of these buckets of people or identifyings of people, I believe we have in our maintenance department. And it's the freedom ones that we find ourselves talking about more and more. You see, this is the type of person who's, look, my time starts at 9 a.m. and I'm done at 5 p.m. and don't talk to me afterwards. If I have to pull call, fine, but you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to get out of it. And, well, if I got to come, I got to come, but I'm going to be done with it as quickly as possible. There is a warning, though, and I completely agree with the study on this. We have got to be careful that we don't view these persons in this freedom type people as not being team players. That's not what they're saying at all. For whatever reason in their lives, they make decisions based on their free time, based on what happens outside of work. Now, the retention strategy for this type of person, the study goes on to report that we should, as leaders, spell out the responsibilities and expectations in detail and then stick to it. Be sure that everyone understands what those expectations are, and then we don't change those expectations on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. We've got to be sure that we provide that freedom area. Now, before we get in and move away from that study and get into the apartment industry and talk more detail, I do need to take a moment and talk about our sponsor. Now, AppWorks has methods that can address some of what we're talking about today. The gamification on their particular system and their business intelligence through gamification, I'm wondering if maybe that gamification might be tied in and help those that are in the money-driven type person. Advancement type people, the record keeping and the way that their app, I have had a chance to take a look at the app to see what it is, and it's really a neat thing that it allows technicians to be rated by individual trade skill. That's a portion of that gamification that allows that advanced intelligence. And I'm wondering if just by tracking that, we give those employees who are a part of that advancement-driven group information to help them know where they need to investigate growing further. And don't think that the freedom type people are left out, because you see, that AppWork app is designed for the power of productivity. That means that our freedom-driven people can get more done in their time frame. It's that advanced business intelligence that AppWork, our sponsor, has the ability to do. Their business intelligence solution gives you the opportunity to provide maintenance, project management, and team coordination. AppWork covers you all. To find out more information, go to www. Now, I thought it would be interesting to take the report that was given from Skimmer and add some application to the apartment industry, because that's where we are. Here at the Multifamily Media Network, we're really focused on what's happening in the apartment industry, in the apartment space. And just like what this survey said, the apartment industry, we are having a big challenge at filling roles, especially in the maintenance department. So what I thought is, if we take these three buckets and we think about them in terms of our on-site teams, I'd like to offer some reflections, if I could, and how those can apply, and not only that, potentially some tools that can help us, if we've identified these team members in each and every one of these driven groups, maybe some ideas on how we can increase retention by offering tailor-made drivers to our employees. We'll start in the same way we did in the beginning with the advancement group. Now, the advancement group, these are our employees that we really should be instilling leadership skills into early on in their career. For instance, if we have a make-ready technician, and that make-ready technician, in addition to caulking the bathtubs and replacing the filter and verifying that the aerator is clear and replacing I don't know, fill valves in toilets or wax ring under toilet, if they're doing those tasks proficiently, and at the same time they're asking about make-ready dates, lost rent, supplies, scheduling, scopes of work, solutions for paint on the wall that's not doing. In other words, if they're asking us questions beyond the individual tasks that they're performing right now, that's an advancement-minded person. That would be the person at my property. If I had a technician, that make-ready technician, I would be rewarding them as soon as they're capable with more responsibility and more accountability and the recognition that goes along with those specific areas. They would be on my property first in line for any continuing credentials. In other words, if my company or my area had the availability to send somebody to get CAMT, the certificate for apartment maintenance technician, this individual would be first in line. The next thing I would do, maybe even simultaneous, I would be absolutely certain that this employee knew what their career path looked like. Not taking a career path off of a website and copy pasting into that technician. I would actually want to sit down with that technician and work it out. To the standpoint of, how are you feeling in each of the trade skill areas that we have to do for our make-ready skills? Plumbing, air conditioning, electrical, carpentry, handyman work, locks, keys. I'd ask them questions, things like, what is it about what you're doing now that excites you? What part of the make-ready process do you love to do? Yeah, I know. I'm saying we need to ask questions like this for our maintenance associates. And based on those answers, I would help to direct them in that path. For instance, early on in my career, I found out I had an affinity for air conditioning work. I was fascinated by the science behind it, the thermodynamic principles, the electrical and mechanical makeup of it. And the supervisor that I was working with identified that and sent me to go get EPA certified earlier than what normally would have been in my career. I took the test and passed it first time out. This was back in 1995. So it's been a minute or two, but he did that for me. We also should really seriously consider, if we have the availability at our community, about a mentoring program or a shadowing program. Even if it's not formalized, someone in the advancement group or advancement driven group, we should partner them up with somebody more experienced. If we happen to work for a management company that's large enough that we have sister properties nearby, this would be a good opportunity to send him or her to spend some time at that other property and get exposed to new technologies and find out different ways of doing the same thing. What about the money group? Well, again, the money group, everybody at some point falls into this. And if our associates are not making enough to stay put, then they're gonna have to leave to go somewhere else to get their needs met. And there's very little we can do about that. Except, what if maybe our properties have ways of earning extra money? Money-driven people, quite honestly, that's the easy discussion to have. And by that I mean other leaders who are concerned about our staffing challenges in the apartment industry. This is the topic that comes up first whenever I happen to be standing around other people who are concerned. Money. How do we get more money? Well, there's some things coming down the market. You may have read articles. You may have seen articles. Properties are changing their manpower setting. And the reality is, we still need more and more maintenance technicians. As a strategy, first, we really need to pay attention to what common salaries are in the areas surrounding our community. And I'm not just talking about our competitive properties, our competitive communities. If a money-driven maintenance technician can make more money standing in front of a retail store with his hand out saying, "Hello, welcome to this particular store," if they can make more money than what they're doing now, they've already got one foot out the door. One of the challenges a good friend of mine pointed out to me recently, that maintenance associates, by nature of the fact that they have to be on call, that is prohibitive for a regular after-hours side hustle. It's not like you can get a job, an evening job or a night job, if you have to have the cell phone right there that you have to respond to a pipe leak. So we, the apartment industry, have got to acknowledge that reality. Why not have a possibility to earn money after hours? I've got this idea toying around in my head for, why don't we turn apartments overnight? I know, the very first thought that came to mind when that idea rattled around in my melon of a head was, what about noise overnight? Well, how much noise actually do we do when we're getting an apartment ready? Not only that, what if we allowed a maintenance technician to work an extra 4 hours a week or an extra 2 hours a night just turning apartments, doing make ready, or something that would have to be situational in nature? But if we have those opportunities, why can't our maintenance technicians do them instead of hiring an outside contractor to come in and turn apartments? If we're short-staffed already, if I have a money-driven person and I am down a particular technician position, I'm not spending that money on manpower. That means I have a little extra money in my budget. Why can't it go towards a money-driven person? Look, for that money-driven person as well, this is where that after-hours on-call complaints come in big time. There is a constant answer to this that I hear talking with managers and directors of maintenance and regionals and owners and executives from the corporate suite all the way down, that says we don't budget for overtime. And I'm not complaining about that. That's exactly right. You cannot budget for overtime. But the reality is, entropy is job security, meaning our buildings will fail. Things break. That's our job security. We will always have a job. That also means that things don't break by a clock. Things are going to happen after hours. And because we're maintenance technicians, we will have to respond after hours. The problem, though, is a lot of communities, where legal, they swap out hours. Meaning, if a Wednesday night you come in and you work 2 hours in the middle of the night for a toilet call or whatever it was, you get called out for 2 hours on a Wednesday night, and the pay period is the same pay period, then you need to go home 2 hours early on Thursday. Here's the problem. We have just told that money-driven employee that their extra effort is not worth it. Not only that, we've punished them, because if they're going home 2 hours early out of that 40-hour week to just make sure that they have 40 hours, well, that's 2 hours less to do the responsibility that we gave them way back on Monday in that week period. For the money-driven person, that's huge. I have a suggestion. If we have to send our employees home, at the very least, let's honor the after hours response. One method of doing that is to have a stipend. Meaning, if you're on call, you get $200. Whether you get a call or not, whether you have to come out or not, just by being on the other end of that cell phone 24 hours a day, you get $200. You come out, that's the potential for overtime. But that potential for overtime, because we don't budget for overtime, I get it. What if we honored that extra time? Meaning, if our maintenance technician comes out for 2 hours, they go home for 3 hours early. Meaning, in the same way that if you worked 42 hours in a week period, for 2 hours you'd be paid time and a half. Well, that time and a half you get off. At the very least, we're honoring that time. And our money-driven person gets a little bit extra money and time back in their day without being punished. Because that also means that now we only have 37 hours to get done what is normally done in a 40-hour work. The freedom person. For our person that is driven by freedom. I'd like to tell you a story. Early on in my career, I worked at a property that we had a grounds technician. I'll call him Vern. Now, Vern was at this property. He worked there for 9.5 years total. I met him at roughly 8.5 because he continued working at that property. And unfortunately, he did end up leaving about a year after I was at that property. Now, Vern was loved by the residents. He knew those residents. He would actually be at the bus stop when the bus dropped kids off at the front of the property. And during summer, some of the best times for him, he loved handing out popsicles that we would get from the office to the kids as they got off the bus. He would help residents carry groceries in. He was just the absolute best. And I'm not overriding it. He was the best grounds technician I ever worked with. Every morning, he was already picking up trash. There was never anything out by the dumpster. All of the responsibilities were done. You knew it was going to be handled. Then we got a new property manager. I can't even really remember why the previous property manager left. It's possible they got promotion or for whatever reason, but we ended up with a brand new property manager. And this property manager started out on day one taking a look at the fact that our maintenance team was down one technician. And in trying to solve the problem of an on-call rotation, that while it normally would have had 3 people on call at a time, we only had 2 people on call at a time. The property manager decided that she wanted to add Vern to the on-call rotation. Just put Vern on the schedule, didn't talk to him at all. We see Vern is a freedom-driven person. He wanted to come in. He actually lived on site. He started every day at 7:30 in the morning, and he worked until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he worked every bit of those hours. The property manager explained to him that this is for your career, for you to advance. Vern didn't see it that way. See, Vern loved the fact that he could plan his days. He could go see his grandkids in the evening. He could barbecue dinner for his wife and not have to worry about whether or not he was going to make it home at a certain time. He valued that. The property manager, it eventually turned into an ultimatum, and Vern said, fine. Vern moved out, went one property over, got a $1 an hour raise. and went to work doing the same thing. He had no desire for advancement. He wanted to just do his job. And to this day, I still remember Vern. It was absolutely wonderful. So how do we do and deal with a freedom type person? How do we drive, relate? I got to know Vern because I'd go help him pick up. If there was a sofa out by the dumpster area, I'd go help him break it down so we could jam it and cram it into the dumpster and make sure that it went. I got to know him, found out about what he liked, and oh, he loved sharing pictures of his grandkids. I got to know him. Anytime there was anything extra going on, we'd have a conversation about it. Find out why he wouldn't be interested in doing it, or maybe he would be interested in doing whatever the extra anything was. But the important thing to him was that I knew him. One of the last things that happened was the property manager asked me to go dictate to Vern that he was going to have to pull call the following week. I talked with the property manager and I said, look, you are in charge. I report to you. I'll do what you say, but I completely disagree with it. This is not the right way to go. And just because I know Vern, I will talk to him about it. But I don't think this is going to have an ending that you're going to look to. And the new property manager said, no, we need a third person on call. I don't want you or your tech to get tired out. I agreed. I didn't want to be tired. I mean, the reality is, I'd much rather have 3 people in the rotation than just the 2 that we had. However, we ended up with just 2 in the rotation and nobody picking up grounds on a regular basis, because now me and the maintenance technician had to do it until we found replacements for both open positions. Just like in Vern's case, it's not that he wasn't a team player. Matter of fact, he loved working at that property. He loved working with those residents. He just didn't want to give up his after hours time. And that is perfectly fine. We need those type of people on our communities. These 3 type of people that we have may be an oversimplification that I got from this survey, but I think it's very valid. Quite possibly, it can be put to use to help on our retention issues. Maybe we can even begin to craft a job description that caters to each of these 3 positions. The important thing, though, is whatever kind of property you're on, whether it's high-rise or garden style, wherever you're at in the country, north, south, west, or east, Hawaii, Alaska, wherever, discuss this. Property managers, talk with your maintenance supervisors, because you are the leaders of your teams. This might be a way that fosters conversation. I'd love to hear what you think about these 3 buckets and possibly any solutions that you may have. On the Multifamily Media Network website, we give you the opportunity to comment or even ask us questions. There's even a button you can click on and record a message for myself or any of the other podcast hosts that are here. I'd like to thank you for joining me today and remind you that today's episode was sponsored by AppWork. AppWork even has a digital make-ready board. So that advancement-minded person that we were talking about earlier, who's the make-ready technician, they can actually get involved and help to schedule the make-ready, triage what's going on, and make notes within their app on the digital make-ready board so that everybody can know and see what the whole process is. Check out what they have to offer at www.appworkco.com. Thank you for spending time with me today. I'll see you somewhere.